live to show you this round. We saw an intentional draw of our main match last round, so still awaiting the results of what's going to happen with everything till the end of this round as far as our top 8 is concerned. But now we've got some more Magic to watch. White-blue control in the hands of Alex Olson versus Burn from Nathaniel Knox, who's going to start things off in classic Burn fashion with a bolt to the face.
Well, folks, most of what I've been able to give you so far this round is uncertainty, but here let's watch a time walk match that's going to give us a decisive result, and at least we'll know for certain that the winner of this match is going to be in our top 8.
Okay, great. What will you do if they shake hands in Game 3?
I think I'll just have to resign. I'll let Marshall come take my place.
Boros Charm here from Nathaniel Knox. It hits Alex down to 13 of Celestial Colonnade and land in play for Alex Olson. In this matchup, is white-blue control able to control fast enough to deal with Burn generally, Reed?
Well, sometimes yes, sometimes no. A lot of it depends on the presence or absence of a cheap creature on the Burn side. Now, if the Burn player actually has to deal 20 damage with spells, that's manageable because it takes some time. They have to not draw too many lands. A well-placed permission spell can interact with that. However, if there's a Goblin Guide that comes down on turn 1 and deals 6 damage, that's a disaster for the white-blue control player, and it makes it really, really challenging for them to stabilize. Now, in this case, Nathaniel Knox did not have that. Alex Olson getting to turn 4 at a reasonable life total, deploying Jace the Mind Sculptor. We can't see Nathaniel Knox's hand, but it looks like a pretty reasonable position for Alex Olson, especially if he can now brainstorm into some counterspells.
Jace the Mind Sculptor in play for Alex Olson. And at 10 life, like you said, a reasonable life total at this point of the game versus something like Burn. Plays a Field of Ruin. And if you're the Burn player now, how do you feel?
Bad. I feel like this game did not go according to plan, and one of the things about playing against blue-white control is you're not dead. You know, you're at 19 life. It's still going to take 5, 6, 7, 10 turns before you actually lose the game, but you feel things slipping away from you. You feel like your opponent still has 10 life points, and each one of those you're going to have to fight tooth and nail for. Slip burn spells past permission, and each turn that goes by, Jace the Mind Sculptor is sculpting the opponent's hand, so it's a bad situation.
Negate there from the white-blue control player. A suspended bolt from Nathaniel Knox. Jace the Mind Sculptor on 5. And when white-blue control has just this much access to what exactly is in their hand, drawing extra cards, and so many cards in hand, I don't know, it just feels helpless.
Now, the one saving grace, Maria, is that this is pre-sideboard. So what that means is that Alex Olson has not gotten to perfect his configuration against Burn. That means he's going to have a lot of cards like Detention Sphere, like Terminus, these sort of clunky cards that don't really protect him from Burn spells going directly at the face. So if he just happens to draw the wrong portion of his deck, if he finds too many Terminuses and not enough Logic Knots, Negates, and Cryptic Commands, he could still lose, but it's definitely, this is the position he was fighting for. He now gets a Negate, a Snapcaster Negate. He's got the Jace still in play, giving him a long-term advantage, and he's doing nicely. He's not out of the woods, but he's relatively safe.
Falling down to 7 after that suspended Rift Bolt, and here's an Eidolon of the Great Revel from Nathaniel Knox.
Okay, Terminus, a great answer because the high converted mana cost means the Eidolon of the Great Revel will not trigger, despite the fact that Alex Olson only had to spend 1 mana for it.
We continue brainstorming here with Jace the Mind Sculptor. Hits a land drop here. Search for Ascanta for Alex Olson.
So now we're getting to the stage in the game where Alex Olson has access to Jace the Mind Sculptor and soon to be Ascanta the Sunken Ruin. So he's going to be able to put permission spells in his hand, and a lot of this game is going to come down to Alex just having to pick and choose when and if he's going to tap his mana, and Nathaniel Knox looking for opportunities to slip burn spells through the cracks. So Alex Olson going to have to navigate carefully, but if he does navigate carefully, he should be more or less locked up to win this game number 1 here against Burn.
Is this something where, as a Burn player, all you can say to yourself is, well, if I stockpile them in my hand, maybe I have a chance?
Yeah, exactly. The worst thing you can do is just fire them off one at a time at sorcery speed and leave them vulnerable to Cryptic Command, to easy pickings for the counter spells of the white-blue control player. As you mentioned, the best case scenario is you draw a couple instant speed burn spells in a row: Boros Charms, Lightning Bolts, Shard Volleys, and then if your opponent makes a critical error, maybe they attack you with a Colonnade and then they spend their mana at the end of the turn to activate Azcanta, you could say, all right, I got you, I found my window, fire off a couple burn spells. That's the plan, but it requires both some good top decks and Alex Olson being a little bit reckless, and I don't think at least the second one is going to happen in this game.
For round 6 have both been posted. Please observe
Opt here from Olson.
Once again, MCQ players,
Snapcaster Mage to opt again.
Grand Prix players, time is up. Active player, please finish your turn. Then both players take a total of 5 additional turns.
Bins a path to exile, draws another one.
Now, if I'm Alex Olson, I'm starting to think, okay, my hand is good enough that I can protect myself from burn spells. Let me transition into actually winning the game. And he could choose to do that with Snapcaster Mage, with Celestial Colonnade, with Jace ticking up if he would like.
And when do you choose to start activating that Colonnade, Reed?
Well, it's a matter of how am I going to win the game in a timely and safe fashion. And there you see Alex Olson just discarded an opt to hand size. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, that's a really good card. He has a stacked hand full of 8 cards. At this point, the limiting factor is probably keeping his mana up and not drawing cards. So if I'm him, I might be transitioning to Fate Sealing with Jace, because that's a win condition that doesn't force me to actually commit any mana on my main phase.
Sure. Something I remember you talking to me about at a tournament was control being played in the hand and not on the board. And if that's the case, Alex Olson has got a great board right now.
Yeah, precisely. But, you know, to be fair, a lot of times burn is played in the hand and not on the board. So Nathaniel Knox certainly has many disadvantages right now in terms of resources, in terms of the actions that he can take with each turn that passes. But one disadvantage that he does not have is the speed of his most important spells. Boros Charm and Lightning Bolt can still be played at instant speed, so the player's not necessarily able to outmaneuver one another on that axis, at least.
Do you think blue-white control is the best control deck in Modern?
It's my favorite. We've talked a lot over the course of the weekend about keeping things simple. I've named Burn and Valakut as 2 of my favorite decks in the format just because their game plans are so redundant and consistent. They really do the same things every single time. And that's something that I like about blue-white control. Your mana base is great. You have a lot of basic lands. You don't take much damage. And, you know, your game plan is the same every time to defend yourself and gain an advantage via Planeswalker or maybe an Azcanta. So I really like the comfortable mana base and the consistent game plan of blue-white control relative to something like Jeskai or Grixis.
Logic Knot here from Alex Olson on one of these Searing Blazes.
So now what happened here was Nathaniel Knox cast 2 Searing Blazes in sequence. He responded to his own spell with a second Searing Blaze. The reason for this is he doesn't care about that Snapcaster Mage. He cares about Alex Olson's life total.
Right.
And Snapcaster Mage being on the battlefield is actually really good for him because it gives him a target for these Searing Blazes. So he's unloading both at the same time just to try to get 3 or, you know, in a perfect world, 6 damage to Alex Olson's life total. But looks like at least one Logic Knot is going to make sure that doesn't happen.
And this is one of the things that we talked about earlier this weekend too, which is knowing the other decks in the format really well, and white-blue control is definitely not a deck you want to play if you're not familiar with the other decks.
Right, and this is a great example of that, Maria. If you're in Alex Olson's position and the burn player has passed a few turns building up cards in hand without casting anything, you start to think, well, what do they have? And if you're unfamiliar with the deck, the matchup, you might just think, oh, I guess they have lands in hand. But the reality is Searing Blaze is a card that makes perfect sense. And Nathaniel Knox could be holding 4 for all we know,
right,
because Alex Olson has never had a creature on the battlefield. So this is a situation that Alex Olson should have been thinking about and preparing for, and perhaps had it on his radar before he ever deployed the Snapcaster Mage in the first place.
Knowing what to counter and when for the blue-white control player here, Cryptic Command hits the table.
Mythic Championship qualifier players. I have a few reminders before we begin the final rounds.
Nathaniel Knox is going to go find a mountain here.
Your result slip should go to the yellow prize tick station to collect your prize ticks from this event. Do not bring it to the blue stage. Please bring your result slip to the yellow prize tick station. At this time, I would also like to...
Yeah, there's a third Searing Blaze.
All right.
And I think it's going to be a third counterspell for Alex Olson.
No way.
But the little victory is that at least Nathaniel Knox made him crack a fetch land, getting him to 6 rather than 7.
Well played, well played. Sure enough, there's another Logic Knot from Alex Olson. So this turn has been really big. Logic Knot, Cryptic Command, 3 Searing Blazes attempted to be cast by Nathaniel Knox. And Eric Olson was able to deal with all of them.
And you may begin.
And we go back over to Alex Olson's turn here, who likes the card off of Ascanta.
Gathering point. Again, players in the 330 two-headed giant event.
Oh, baby, he's ousting his own Snapcaster Mage.
All right. I like it. That's spicy.
Then brainstorming it back into his hand to represent a counter spell when paired with Logic Knot or Cryptic Command. Perfect sequence. The fast pace of play, along with these techie uses of strange cards, really shows Alex Olson's mastery of the deck. He has a lot of experience, I can tell.
Wow, really neat use for that card, Oust, there with Snapcaster Mage when you want access to more counter spells than you currently have in your hand.
And at this point, Maria, Nathaniel Knox, he saved up some burn spells. He took his shot. He fought a good battle with the triple Searing Blaze. He lost the battle, and now this game is over. There's no way that Nathaniel Knox can win anymore, and it's just a matter of Alex Olson actually dealing the last points of damage or winning with Jace or some alternative win condition.
So Nathaniel Knox able to knock Alex Olson down to 12 here in this game, but as you can see, Celestial Colonnade getting activated is the beginning of the end for Nathaniel Knox here in Game 1. There's a Goblin Guide from Knox. Snapcaster Mage here, end of turn. Gets rid of that Goblin Guide. With a Terminus. Colonnade comes back into play, make that 2.
That's an attack for 10.
Yeah, that is lethal.com/lethal. Alex Olson will take down game number 1 here of our Time Walk match versus Nathaniel Knox.
But not yet. Nathaniel Knox surviving at 1.
Oh, okay, he's at 1.
Maybe if he draws Jokel Hops, the game can continue.
What is Jokel Hops?
It destroys everything.
Is that a real card? How do you even spell it?
J-U-K, I don't know.
Jokel Hops?
Chat can help. I'm not a good speller.
I don't know if that's how you spell it. I'm trying to find it. Jokel Hops. J-O-K, okay. J-O-K-U-L. Oh my gosh, it looks like a giant wave. Destroy all artifacts, creatures, and lands that can't be regenerated for 6 mana. All right, Jokel hops out of the sideboard. Let's go. Oh, just kidding. It's not legal in Modern. Womp womp.
Anyway, a better start for Nathaniel Knox here on the play with Goblin Guide. It looks like he may have taken some mulligans, but he's still got an amazing start here with turn 1 Goblin Guide, turn 2 Eidolon of the Great Revel.
Absolutely. Alex Olson down to 16 here. Knox 18. Goblin Guide, Eidolon in play, as you said.
Geez,
We just discard.
Nathaniel Knox must have mulliganed to 5 here, but he has the absolute perfect 5-card hand.
Really? There's a land for Alex Olson off that Goblin Guide, which is pretty nice here. Celestial Purge as well, able to cast this turn, taking out the Eidolon.
Celestial Purge, really nice sideboard card against Burn, and I was actually thinking about that one as a nice way to combat the Is It Phoenix deck. Permanently exiling Arclight Phoenix is important, answer to Crackling Drake.
Goblin Guide getting in again, Lightning Bolt as well. Land number 3 for Alex Olson falls to 9 here. Two cards left for Nathaniel Knox. Let's play another one of them. It's Goblin Guide number 2. Swinging in.
Man, high hit rate with
No kidding.
these Goblin Guides.
Really nice for the control player to have those lands. The downside of the Goblin Guide, one of them is going to be met with Path to Exile. Alex Olson down to 7 here. Last game he was around 10 when he was able to stabilize.
Yeah, so this one going better for the Burn player. Still undecided, hard to tell who's going to win.
Back over to Olson. Land number 4, go. Nathaniel Knox drawing for the turn, 2 cards left. Goblin Guide swings in. Finally no hit on the land there. There's Cryptic Command from Alex Olson.
Wow, just to bounce the Goblin Guide, huh?
Yeah, I guess so. Goblin Guide back to hand for Knox.
Yeah, I guess you just do anything to protect your life total in this situation. He's got enough cards that he doesn't have to be conservative. He just wants to use his mana every turn and keep his life total as high as he possibly can.
Pass of the turn from Nathaniel Knox over to Alex Olson, who makes another of his land drops here, so he's been doing perfectly fine with hitting his lands. I see another Cryptic in hand as well for Alex Olson. Is this a timely reinforcements?
Timely reinforcements, and yeah, 6 life, even with no creatures. That is a big swing against a Burn player that's low on resources via mulligans.
All right, so Alex Olson rockets up to 13 off of that timely reinforcements here. Goblin Guide replayed from Nathaniel Knox. Jace, the Mind Sculptor, on top of the deck for Alex Olson. He'll take the hit there. Down to 11 and then down to 10 off the crack of this fetch. Finds an island.
After 15 rounds of
We've got to
Swiss,
mute our mics
Grand
because the
Prix
top 8 is being announced. We'll be right back. We are back. Thank you for sticking with us. The top 8 announcement in the room. We didn't want to have any spoilers here for this match that we're watching, as it is a top 8 winning in for these players. Alex Olson able to deal with the second Goblin Guide here from Nathaniel Knox.
I will spoil one thing, Maria.
Yes.
This match reaches its natural conclusion, and one of these players is in our top 8.
All right, great. Who will it be, Burn or White-Blue Control? Get your guesses in now. I must say there was a lot of cheering when number 8 was announced, Reed.
Yep.
That's my one teaser. All right, so resuming this match, Nathaniel Knox 17, Alex Olson at 10. Alex Olson up a game with White-Blue Control over Burn. And here is Teferi, Hero of Dominaria for Alex Olson.
All right, so shields down temporarily, but Teferi, as we know,
puts him right back
unbelievably
up.
Powerful planeswalker, and if Nathaniel Knox can't make a good play before these lands get untapped, Teferi is really going to run away with this. So the player's just double-checking if a land drop had been made. It has not.
I gotta say, the number of times I forget if I make a land drop is quite embarrassing.
No, yeah, it's something that happens. It's hard to keep track in a complicated game of Magic, especially it comes up a lot with decks like White-Blue Control where you're drawing a lot of extra cards, so you can't really just use the metric of like, was this land in my hand last turn? But yeah, I feel pretty certain that Alex Olson has not made a land drop this turn. I think he cast Supreme Verdict and had 1 island untapped last turn.
All right, the players are going to get this sorted out between them here. Something funny I have seen people do is play their lands upside down if it's their land for the turn.
Yeah, that's a good thing to do if you anticipate that the turn's going to be particularly complicated. Or sometimes I just announce it. I just say, make my land drop, so then it's crystal clear.
Here's Lightning Helix from Nathaniel Knox. Teferi will untap a couple of lands, as he is wont to do. Do you think Teferi has made a big difference for White-Blue Control, Reed?
I do. Now, any card that costs 5 mana in any non-combo Modern deck can't really be considered an essential part of the deck. The reason that White-Blue Control works is because of the cheap permission, the board sweepers, the card filtering, and in a way, Jace the Mind Sculptor. But Teferi is definitely a cut above any other card that would be played in that top-end slot. Some cards that you used to see sometimes would be Gideon Jura or Jace Architect of Thought or Sun Titan, anything like that. Teferi is just way, way better and more efficient than any of those cards, and it's really good. It's perfect because it allows you to draw extra cards and progress your game plan while not putting the shields down in terms of having open mana, passing with Cryptic Command and removal spells, Snapcaster Mage available, a huge appeal of playing Blue-White Control. And the other thing is Teferi just has a really, really high loyalty. It's hard to kill with Lightning Bolts and Bloodbraid Elves and Creature Lands and anything like that. So Teferi just protecting himself well and having a high, robust loyalty. He's a great Planeswalker and perfect for modern Blue-White Control.
Snapcaster Mage here, snapping back some timely reinforcements for Alex Olson, although the reinforcements don't show up, the life gain does. Goes back up to 13.
Right, and at this stage in the game, you're not really thinking about how to generate maximum value from each of your cards. You're thinking about, I am so far ahead, how can I lose? And of course, when you're playing against Burn, the answer is getting burned out. So Alex Olson just couldn't be happier to cash in his Snapcaster Mage for 6 points of life, even though he doesn't get the value from actually generating 3 tokens.
And we saw that early in the game, too, with Cryptic Command, with the bounce of the 1 creature. Which I guess there's really no bad time to play Cryptic Command.
That's true.
No bad mode. Negate here from Alex Olson, and Snapcaster Mage getting busy here for 2 points of damage. Knox will fall to 17. And it looks to me like White-Blue Control has firmly taken over the driver's seat here.
Yeah, Teferi sitting at 8 loyalty now. The emblem is not as effective against Burn as it might be against some kind of creature deck, but Teferi emblem is Teferi emblem. A few turns from now, Nathaniel Knox is going to have no permanence.
Sort of resignedly throwing down that Eidolon of the Great Revel there, passing the turn back over to Alex Olson. And here's that Teferi emblem, which is going to start exiling.
Oh, the humanity.
And now a Jace the Mind Sculptor. Bye, Teferi. Hi, Jace.
So Alex Olson going to fully resolve the Brainstorm and then choose 3 permanents to exile. And I think Nathaniel Knox he's almost seen enough.
Oh, my goodness, I would have. Look at this Annihilator combo we've assembled.
All right, so as a response to all of this, Nathaniel Knox is going to play a Boros Charm and a Lightning Bolt. Boros Charm met with Dispel, but at least that triggers Eidolon of the Great Revel, so a few points of damage pushed through to knock Alex Olson down to 8, I believe.
Nathaniel Knox does this resolve. Certainly not, says the White-Blue Control player. Draws another card. It's a Cryptic Command. Exile another land. And here we go, 3 more exile triggers.
Yeah, and no cards in hand for Nathaniel Knox. A comfortable 8 points of life for Alex Olson. This one's over, there's no way.
No. Celestial Colonnade now hitting the red zone along with Snapcaster Mage, but I guess when you're playing for the top 8, maybe you play it out. How about a last peek? And there is a handshake. Alex Olson is in your top 8 with White-Blue Control. Congratulations as well to Nathaniel Knox on a great run at this tournament. Well, we now know for a fact that we've got White-Blue Control in the top 8 and a bunch of other really cool decks as well, which we got to hear, but maybe we'll leave you a little spoiler-free to find out what those are coming up with Marshall and Eduardo here in the booth. But yeah, great tournament so far. Overall takeaways before we head into the top 8, Reed?
Well, Krark Clan Ironworks, certainly the deck of the tournament so far. 3 players, spoiler-free, 3 players in position to make the top 8, you know, fighting for it at least on tiebreakers. That a popular choice among the elite players in the room. And we're not done. We have more Time Walk to show you. But yeah, takeaways: Krark Clan Ironworks setting itself up as the best, most successful deck, but with slightly under the surface a tremendous amount of diversity in Modern. And it's not just the top 4 or 5 established decks that are dominating the format. It's hidden stuff. It's Burn. It's Titan Shift. It's Elves. It's Merfolk. These decks that we've seen over the course of the weekend. In the hands of the players that love them and have played them for years, anything can win in Modern.
All right, we're going to get a chance here to see a few more decks from our feature match area. Marshall Jankowski versus Steven Solis. Is it Phoenix and Titan Shift? So we got a combo deck on the left side, and Is it Phoenix, a deck which can work on a couple of different axes from Steven. Is it Phoenix, another pretty popular one this weekend, Reed?
Yeah, Is it Phoenix, the breakout deck of the last month of Modern. This is a really powerful deck that's only really been made possible because of the printing of Arclight Phoenix in Guilds of Ravnica. But even after that, it's still in flux. There's still a lot of different ways you can build it. We saw some players turning to Monastery Swiftspear,
That's
a lower
right.
to the curve, more efficient build. Other players focusing more on Crackling Drake, going a bit higher, more controlling. So still a lot of uncertainty in terms of the best way to iron out this archetype, but a lot of raw power there.
Thing in the ice hits the table for Steven. Marshall here able to explore. Do you think Is It Phoenix has enough tools to deal with something like Titan Shift, which can be pretty fast?
Good question. I think I'd rather be on the Titan Shift side, just
Yeah.
because of the simplicity, the straightforwardness of the game plan. Is It Phoenix, despite being a blue deck with lots of card drawing, it really doesn't play permission spells in the main deck. Usually just things like Is It Charm that can play multiple roles. So I would say game one, reasonably heavily in favor of Titan Shift. More even after sideboard, after Is It Phoenix can bring in a couple well-placed permission spells. But either deck can win. We've seen Is It Phoenix produce some very, very powerful draws, and transforming Thing in the Ice just kills so fast that I would never really count this deck out.
Metamorphose here for Steven. Ticks down Thing in the Ice to 3 ice counters. Titan Shift, a deck that's capable of winning on 4. Thought Scour here. We'll take it down to 2. Arclight Phoenix in the yard right where he wants it. And there's a Faithless Looting. Thing ticks down to 1.
Wow, this is quite a turn for
It
Steven
sure
Solis.
is. Oh, there's 2 more Arclight Phoenixes in hand.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So this is going to be an attack for 16 if he can play one more spell.
Oh my gosh. 3 Phoenixes in the yard. Another Faithless Looting. Let's get the 4th. Let's get the 4th. Thing in the Ice. Gonna flip.
Sorry, which one of these was supposed to be the combo deck?
Yeah, right? Exactly. This looks so sweet. This has got to be the coolest Is It Phoenix turn we've seen all day, and we've seen a couple other really, really cool ones, but never 3 Phoenixes coming back with an Awoken Horror.
It's funny because we saw Steven Solis defeat Paul Rietzel last round, and he had a really awesome double Phoenix turn. He said, "I think that's the best draw I've had all tournament." And
Well,
now
he did it.
he's one-upping himself with an attack for 16 on turn 3
Oh, that's
against
awesome.
this poor Titan Shift player who only played 1 Explorer and made some land drops all game.
I mean, isn't that what Titan Shift has basically relegated itself to do? Playing
Yeah.
some lands and an Explorer. Oh, sad. Is It Phoenix taking down that first game there? So Steven Solis up 1 versus Marshall Jankowski, who's got a great Magic name, by the way. It's also what we call Marshall Sutcliffe when he brings a real nasty homebrew to the table. All right, but we're kicking things off here right away in game number 2, thanks to Time Walk. Search for Tomorrow from the Titan Shift player.
You'll notice him going for Basic Forest. That's because one possible sideboard card that these Is It Phoenix decks have access to for a matchup like this is Blood Moon. So Blood Moon, even if Marshall can search up Basic Forest, will stop the Valakut combo, but at least finding Forest means you can cast your ramp spells. It means you can have access to something like Nature's Claim to eventually answer the Blood Moon.
And we see here that Steven has elected for the Monastery Swift Spear in his build of this deck, which is something not everyone has chosen this weekend. Search down to 1. Explore for Jankowski. Jankovsky, excuse me. Valakut the Molten Pinnacle. Gosh, I can talk.
And I see what Marshall is doing is he's putting his land drops in a different row than his existing lands, just to keep track. which is great and very topical because in our previous match we did have a disagreement between the two players about whether or not a land had been played. This is just one of these accounting things that comes up when you play tabletop Magic the Gathering that, you know, you have to keep track of, and both players have to agree.
And I gotta say, I really love Arena, but man, there's just nothing like playing tabletop Magic, Reed.
Agreed. Yep, I completely agree.
Search here comes off suspend for Marshall.
So Steven Salas getting both ends of the spectrum here. One of the best draws we saw all tournament in game number 1, and one of the worst here in game 2, missing his land drop even after an opt.
So just a little Swift Spear in play for Steven right now. Marshall developing his plan there with plenty of lands. You can kind of get a little peek of his hand here from our top-down cam as well. Another search.
Yep, this one's being hard cast. Really nice thing about Search for Tomorrow is the land enters the battlefield untapped, so we might see Jankowski cast yet another spell this turn.
Unfortunately for the Is It Phoenix player, it seems that they've just fallen too far behind. Unless Jankowski just has no action in hand. But it doesn't look that way. Sakura Tri-Builder here.
Yeah, so this is great. He's going to untap with either access to either 6 or 7 mana. And you know what that unlocks? Primeval Titan,
yes.
Scape Shift. The world is his oyster at this point. And
I love this little Swift Spear, though.
one of the most disastrous things about Steven Salas' position is normally he could hope to use permission spells to protect himself against the combo from the Titan Shift deck, but without having made his land drops, he needs to spend his mana on other things. He needs to present threats. He needs to use his cantrips to help him find his land drops. So he can't do it all. He can't be casting his spells and holding up mana for permission. So I think at this point, with his position as bad as it is, he's sort of just crossing his fingers and saying, you know what, I hope your hand is really bad because otherwise I'm not winning.
Found a mountain here.
Oh, hello.
Alpine Moon. All right, what does this do, Reed?
Well, Alpine Moon is like a localized blood moon that shuts down the abilities of a single land on the battlefield. So that's going to stop Jankowski's Valakut from triggering off of his normal land drops, off of Primeval Titan, off of his ramp spells. But what it won't stop is a Scape Shift.
Alpine Moon lands your opponent's control with the chosen name, lose all types and abilities, and they gain tap, add 1 mana of any color. So you have to choose a non-basic land card, of course, Valakut, when it enters the battlefield.
Oh, excuse me, with the chosen name. So that does shut down all the Valakuts in Jankowski's deck. So he is protected from Escape Shift as long as this Alpine Moon is in play.
Here's a Spell Pierce.
Next to the black gathering points.
So this is actually quite impressive. The combination of Alpine Moon and Spell Pierce making for a really, really strong turn for Steven Salas. I thought he was going to be completely helpless at the hands of Marshall Jankowski, but he's put together a nice defense. Jankowski here pays for the Spell Pierce on Summoner's Pact, finds his Primeval Titan, but now he can't cast a Titan this turn. Next turn he's going to have to pay for the Pact.
Yeah.
And he can try to win the game 3 turns from now, but that does buy Steven Salas quite a lot of time.
He is able to deal with that Alpine Moon, though. Reclamation Sage hitting the table. Summoner's Pact, a super interesting card. I've always been a fan of that really bizarre design.
Yeah, the pacts are a fun cycle of cards, and Summoner's Pact does a lot of work in this deck, representing extra copies of Primeval Titan and utility, like searching for Reclamation Sage, the card you see on the battlefield right now. You can search for a Sakura Tribe Elder under the right circumstances, Obstinate Baloth, Tireless Tracker, whatever you like. Utility and consistency.
So Steven Solis has been able to find a second land here in this game, but what will he be able to do with it? Answer, Thing in the Ice. This turn, that Alpine Moon going away pretty scary.
All right, so that's Summoner's Pact being paid for. Looks like Jankowski's probably not going to do a whole lot on this turn, but still putting the screws to Steven Solis, as he does have Primeval Titan set up to go next turn, so can Solis produce some kind of counter spell? There's not that many that can answer a creature. Spell Pierce and Negate won't do it.
Steven leaning over to take a double check here of this Valakut. We're going to get an Oracle on this. This, by the way, is something you can do if you're unfamiliar with a card. Maybe that isn't even in play. You can always ask a judge for the Oracle text.
Yeah, particularly many of the older cards that haven't been printed in the last 5 or 6 years, they sometimes come with errata, which means rules change relative to the text that's actually printed on the physical card. So if there's something that's a little bit confusing or uncertain, it's a great practice to just go ahead and ask a judge, and you can get the updated rules text on a card.
Marshall Jankowski set on 16 life, Steven Solis 17 here in round 15, which is the last round of Swiss before our top 8 coming up in just a little bit. We're getting it all settled in our feature match area. The players are filling out their player bio information sheets, which are always one of my favorite parts of the top 8. Get to know our players in the top 8 a little bit better, getting their pictures taken, that kind of thing, and getting ready to play some very important matches of Magic. Okay, so what we're going to do here to kind of speed things along is we're going to go ahead and jump to game number 3. So, spoiler alert, things are all tied up here. Titan Shift 1 game. Is it Phoenix 1 game? Not too surprising after what we saw last time. So, here we go with our Time Walk match, round number 3.
Yeah, presumably Titan Shift just cast Primeval Titan against the Mana Screwed opponent, and that was good enough for a number of reasons, not the least of which being 6/6 trample. And here we have game 3, which could go to either player. Remember, this is post-sideboard, so the Is It Phoenix deck is going to get access to Alpine Moon, Spell Pierce, some other key permission spells, and if they can have a nice clock with well-placed disruption, this could go well for them.
All right, here we go. Thing in the Ice for Steven Solis. Search for Tomorrow goes down to 1 for Marshall Jankowski. And an Explorer. Plays another land, passes the turn back. And I really like that little land trick that you mentioned that he's doing there, Reed.
Yeah, it's great on a turn that you're going to play Explorer. You know things are going to get complicated, so let's just help both players and us, the viewers, keep track of everything.
Opt ticks down the ice counters on Thing in the Ice. 2-3. A question from chat, Reed. Do places beyond 8th for our top 8 get invites to the Pro Tour and Mythic Championship?
Believe the answer is if you achieve a 13-2 record but don't make the top 8, you will get invited to the Mythic Championships, but that's not going to come up here at Grand Prix Oakland since it was a small enough tournament that anybody with that good of a record will be in our top 8 anyway. So that means this is really for all the marbles. The winner of this game and match will appear in our top 8. The loser, still a great finish that they can be proud of. They might finish in the top 16 of the tournament, win some money, but that's it. This is about as high stakes as it gets.
Lightning bolt here from Steven. Thinking the ice down to 1. Let's make that 0 and a flip.
Holy
Mutagenic
cow.
growth? Wow.
So the difference between Game 3 and Game 1 is there were no Arclight Phoenixes to return, but that was still an attack for, 15?
That was sweet. Wow, I didn't think we could see anything cooler than what we saw in Game 1 from Steven Solis here, and this doesn't quite reach that level, but that was awesome.
So it's up to Jankowski to produce a blocker, kill the Awoken Horror, or kill Steven Solis this turn, because he can't take another hit. So perhaps the best thing he can hope for is Sakura Tribe Elder.
Let's see what he's got. And sure enough, he's got it, Reed.
All right, he's not dead.
Monastery Swift Spear. Attack.
Is there a lightning bolt? There's not.
Block, sack, find a land. Jankowski down to 3.
And he's at that crucial
Yeah, he could just steal
6
it
lands,
here.
a 7th land, and escape shift that represents 18 damage. Does he have it? Does Solis have a counterspell? This is it. This turn is going to determine which player's in our top 8. There's escape shift. And it's resolving.
Okay, I don't see any counter coming out of the hands of Steven Solis. Let's go find our mountains. And there is the handshake. Wow. Marshall Jankowski able to steal one out of the hands of Steven Solis there with Titan Shift in our last round of Swiss.
That Sakura Tribe Elder, he's going to have to get that one framed after today. That was amazing. Just the subtle chump block, getting up to 7 mana, and not a moment too soon with that escape shift.
All right, here we go. And it is time to reveal our top 8 here at Grand Prix Oakland. Take a look at our standings. Ely Cassis, Alex Olson, Marshall Jankowski, Garth Dracolius, Matt Nass, Hunter Cochran, Sam Black, and Stephen Hawker. Coming up, the top 8 in just a little bit here, but first, these messages.